Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to the Dyslexic Reader. Today I wanted to do my mid-month wrap-up for August of 2017. The first book I read in August was a reread for me, and that was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's been about 9 years since I read this book, and that completely blew my mind. When I was thinking about it, I studied this book in high school, and it was really weird reading it, how many memories it brought back for me. I could remember where I sat in the room and who I sat with and the teacher and different little essays that we had to write and stuff. It was quite freaky, the memories that it sparked, and it was definitely a bit of an eye-opener to realise how long ago that was. But I would say that I much more understood and enjoyed this book a second time round. I don't know whether that's because in the last 9 years I have matured, or whether it was I didn't find the studying part of it fun, analysing it, breaking it down, reading it in short chunks over a long period of time. I'm not sure if that was maybe just not my style, but definitely this went from a 4-star to a 5-star read for me without a doubt. I loved the story, the characters. It had me crying in parts, which for anyone who knows me semi-well will know that that's not an easy thing to do. And I just felt so at home in it, which was bizarre because I obviously read it multiple times over and over again when I was studying it, but as I say, I haven't picked it up for 9 years, and to feel so at home in something and as if the characters were really long lost friends, it was a really, really lovely experience for me, and I absolutely loved it. And I would say to anyone out there, if you have not read To Kill a Mockingbird, no matter what age you are, it is definitely something to go for. It is absolutely beautiful, and I promise you, you won't regret it. My second book was the second in a series. It was the second in the Ravenstorm Island series, which is a middle grade mystery sort of series. There is only 2 books at the minute, so this wraps it up. And it was The Ship of Ghosts. This one was centered around a ghostly pirate ship, and it was just quite a good summer vibe for me. I enjoyed it. The mystery was good. The writing's good. I am intrigued by the characters in this series. It's mostly around 2 cousins, but also a younger cousin as well pops in and out of the story. They're on their summer holidays, and they are living in a castle on an island. And there's lots of mythical twists to it. It's not just pure cut and dry mysteries. The characters are just really, really great. I love the concept of the series. I obviously can't say too much plot line because you'll need to read the first one. But the mystery was good, and it was just an easy, fun read. And I ended up giving it 4 stars, which I gave the first one as well. Then I read possibly one of the worst books I have read at least this year, possibly ever, which was Nevermind by Edward St. Auburn. This book was a 1-star. I can't believe I finished it. I think I only finished it because it was so short, and I was hoping something would happen at the end. Nothing happens at the end. Nothing happens in the whole book. There is no plot. The one thing I did like about it was the characters. A lot of them were currently reading books, and you sort of got an insight into their personality from what they were choosing to read, and I thought that was interesting. But I hated all the characters. It was full of abuse, so anyone who has any sort of sensitivities to reading that material, like I don't, and I was cringing at some of it. It's full of abuse, sexual abuse, and also child abuse. All this goes on. There is no sort of consequences for any of this happening, and it circles around a dinner party in the south of France with English sort of well-to-do people, and I understand that it was trying to highlight that obviously people with more money can still have a lot of issues in their lives, aren't necessarily perfect, and especially mental health in richer people and higher society is something that they really is. It's studied that there is a lot of mental health problems, but it came across to me as whiny, and there was no story, and I didn't find the character development interesting because I hated them all. They were all horrible people, and I just did not understand this book. And I think it's the first in the series. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 books, and I will not be picking them up. I had no interest. It just wasn't nice. I then picked up Shadow in the North by Philip Pullman. This is the second in the Sally Lockhart series, reading a lot of seconds apparently. This was good. It was 5 stars, which is what I gave the first book when I read it during Booktubeathon. I couldn't wait to pick up the second. It is a Victorian mystery surrounding Sally Lockhart, who was an orphan. There was a couple of things in this book I really appreciated. First was Philip Pullman's writing style. The first book of this series was the first that I have read by him, and I absolutely fell in love with his writing style. This is only my second book, and I think he is on sure way to being one of my favourite authors of all time, purely for writing style. I think he's phenomenal. But the mystery was good. I didn't see all the twists and turns coming. I like the characters. I like the character development. This is set about 5 or 6 years after the first one, and I like that. I sometimes feel like in mysteries, and the next week, you'll never believe it, another murder happened in this person's life. And I'm like, no, there's no way someone can have 7 books worth of mysteries to solve within 3 months of their life. So I enjoyed that this was 6 years later, and the characters have developed a lot, and their personalities and relationships had changed. I thought that was interesting. I liked the characters. Part in the middle had me shook. The ending had me surprised. I didn't see all the wee twists and turns, and I felt like it was a slow read, not in terms of pacing, but considering that it was like 300 pages, it took me a long time to get through, but I think I was just enjoying the writing and really soaking it in. So don't expect to pick these mysteries up, and because they're quite short, to fly through them, because they're quite dense, or so I found, so they took longer to read, but they're definitely worth it. I cannot wait to jump into the 3rd and 4th. My next read was The Copper Gauntlet, which is the second in the Magisterium series. As I said, a lot of seconds for some reason. And this is written by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is a series that is a middle grade YA fantasy that surrounds 3 teenagers going through a sort of magic school, but it is a magical world where people can control elements. So there's fire, earth, water, and air. There's also a 5th element, which is chaos, and only very certain wizards can control it. There has been a wizarding war in the past, and it's still sort of impacting politically on the world. I obviously can't say too much about what happens in this book because it'll spoil what happens in the first. But I thought this was a really good sequel. I gave it a 4 star. I gave the first one a 5 star. But the first one, the concept was so interesting to me. And I feel like this book didn't have that big twist, which I wasn't expecting it to have, but it just didn't quite reach the mark of the first one for me. In the first one, I didn't like the characters as much. I'm really getting to know the characters, and I'm really enjoying this world. I find the concept of the main storyline really intriguing, which I obviously can't go into because I'll spoil the ending of the first book. But yeah, if you see this kicking about, I saw it in my library, I would definitely chance picking it up. I'm really annoyed that the series isn't finished. I normally wait till a series is completely published. So if I want to binge, I can. There's only 3 of the 5 books out at the minute, so I'm going to delay the 3rd one for as long as possible so that I'm not having to wait years between the 3rd and the 4th coming out, hopefully. But yeah, I'm enjoying this series immensely. My next book was an audiobook, and that was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe by Benjamin Alire. Now this is a hyped book. I'm sure most people know the general premise. It's about 2 teenage boys, Aristotle and Dante, who all become best friends, and it's just a coming of age story. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the characters. It's more of a character-driven book than a plot-driven book. And normally I'm more of a plot gal, but I really did enjoy this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And to be honest, it was the last 50 pages that took away that 5-star for me. I wasn't a big fan of how the ending had played out. To me, it felt rushed. They knew what the ending was going to be, so it was just like, right, well, there's the ending, we're here, we just have to find a way to get from A to B quickly now because we're wrapping up the story. I felt like that's what it felt a little bit to me, and that took a star off it. But I really liked the family relationships in this book. I thought they were terribly realistic. I think sometimes in books, especially aimed towards middle grade YA, there can be a lot of angsty teenagers. Oh, my siblings are always stealing stuff. Oh, I hate my parents, they're just out to embarrass me. And like every story's like that. And I feel like that's not representation of actual family relationships. And I felt like this book done that extremely well. I also liked that the 2 main characters were Mexican, living in America. And I like that little twist and the little bit of culture I got from it. So yeah, if you're looking for a fun sort of YA summer contemporary, which is not my bag at all, but I enjoyed this, I would pick it up. I enjoyed it. Another classic reread for me was Animal Farm. I have not read this in a year or 2, and the last time I read it, it was a 4-star. I enjoyed it, I got it, but it wasn't great. Again, this has gone from a 4-star to a 5-star for me. I don't know if I'm just into my political sort of classics at the minute or not, but I thoroughly enjoyed this the second time around as opposed to the first time I read it. I don't know, I found it a lot more thought-provoking, and I don't know if it is sort of the current world state making me think about politics or whether it's a maturity thing, but it definitely resonated more with me. Cat's knocking the camera. It definitely resonated more with me this time, and I found myself being able to put the characters into human form, if you know what I mean. I was able to take the animal characters that were meant to represent something human, and I was able to see that more clearly this time round. It must have just been my mindset, I think, but it's a good quick read. I enjoyed it, and I gave it a 5 stars. I love Boxer. I thought it was so good. And the book that I just finished for the halfway point this month coming up was An Arsenic for Tea by Robin Stevens. This is the second book in Murder Most Unladylike sort of series, but it is the 4th book I've read. These are middle grade mysteries. They are a series, but you do not have to read them in order. If you're thinking of picking them up, I would recommend the first one first, because it has the best introduction to the characters, obviously, at the start. But as of the mysteries and the timing, you do not need to read them in order. As I said, this is the second in the series, but the 4th that I've read. I just, when I see them at the library, pick them up. I don't go hunting for them. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was one of the better mysteries, but I wasn't as much as a fan of the setting of the book or some of the characters that it contained. I thought it was a little bit bland or cliche, but the murder was really good, and I had my suspicions, but it wasn't up until like not long before they revealed it that I really was like, oh, which is good, especially in a middle grade mystery. And I enjoy the writings of these. I enjoy the diversity. It's the 2 main characters are roommates in an English boarding school, and it's set in the early 1900s, sort of 1930s, in between the wars. And I like the time period, and I like the characters. One of our characters is from Hong Kong. We have more overweight characters, and they talk about how that's sort of portrayed in society. And I think a lot of the things are throughout these books, especially for the sort of kids age range that it's aimed for, which I would say would be like 9 to 12. I think they're talked about very well. Not in this book, but in Jolly Foul Play, which is the 4th book, I think, in the series. It talks about sexuality in a way that I think is really interesting, the way they tackled it for kids. I'm all around just a fan of these books. I gave this one 4 star, and I'll definitely be picking the couple up that I'm missing in the not so distant future. That is all the books that I've read so far in August. In another couple of weeks, I'll post my final wrap up with the rest of the books, but I'm really proud with how the first half was going. I thought I hadn't read that much, and then today when I looked back on my Goodreads to see exactly what I had read, I realised it was a lot more than I thought it was going to be, so I'm quite proud of that. I am well on my way to my Goodreads goal. I think I'm on book 93 now of my 100 goal, which is absolutely crazy to me. Last year I read like 33 books. So for this year to have so much left and be nearing my 100 goal is absolutely crazy for me. And I think you guys have had a lot of part to do with that, with the sort of motivation chats I've been having with you guys on here, and buddy reads and different things, so I'd like to thank you for that. I hope you're all happy, I hope you're all healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.